More than a decade ago, there was a kid so fond of tacos that he was nicknamed Taco Jay. This very same kid went on to dominate the high school basketball scene in Missouri before coming to Duke and then making his way to the NBA, where he ultimately became a winner. But for some reason, no one thought a young man named Jayson Tatum was even going to be a superstar and a winner. So, in this video, we'll analyze how Tatum turned a taco-loving teen into one of the elite basketball superstars in the world. Unlike most NBA superstars, Jayson Tatum wasn't born and raised in a basketball hotbed like California, New York, or Indiana. Instead, he was born in St. Louis, Missouri, which was never known for producing basketball talent. After all, there's no NBA team in Missouri, and the college basketball scene there isn't really the best. So if you're a kid growing up in St. Louis, you'd rather play football and baseball than basketball. But Jayson Tatum got drawn to basketball because his father was a former college player. The sport ran deep through his blood. But the problem was that the competition in Missouri wasn't really the best. At one point, he even had to play AAU basketball 4 hours away because there weren't any good AAU programs in Missouri. His parents had to drive him from St. Louis all the way to Memphis to join his AAU team. But it was all worth it because his AAU coach declared that this fifth grader was eventually going to be a Hall of Famer in the NBA. Still, he had to stay close to home in Missouri because it didn't seem practical to drive 4 hours just to play basketball. That's why he went to Chaminade Prep School in Missouri, mostly inspired by Bradley Beal, who starred on that very same high school team. So, even though Missouri wasn't known for basketball talent, two future stars came from that area. And Tatum grew up watching Beal, who was several years older than him. He was in 7th grade when Beal was a senior, and he thought that if Beal could get a college scholarship after playing for Chaminade, then so could he. Of course, while he was developing his basketball skills for Chaminade, he was also growing into his body. Thankfully, he developed a love for tacos early in life. This earned him the nickname Taco J, which was something his mom cooked up for him. Eventually, all his friends started calling him Taco. And all those tacos went to the right places because as a 9th grade student, Tatum was already 6'7", close to his mature height. Fueled by his love for Mexican food, Jayson Tatum dominated the high school scene in Missouri. By his senior year, he was averaging 29.6 points and 9.1 rebounds on his way to a state championship. This was when he found himself getting recruited by Coach K and Duke University, one of the best programs in the country. After all, he was the 3rd best prospect of his recruitment class, behind only Harry Giles and Josh Jackson. Yeah, you probably don't know those players because they never became anything in the NBA. Basically, some scouts ranked those two players higher than a taco-loving teenager from Missouri. And this wasn't the first time that Tatum got overlooked behind other talented players. He had a very fruitful year with Duke while showcasing his wide array of offensive skills. Still, everyone around the country was talking about Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball. The ongoing debate was who between the 2 point guards was more deserving of the number 1 overall pick. While that was happening, the team that had the number 1 overall pick in 2017, the Boston Celtics, was actually looking at Tatum. They wanted him more than either Fultz or Ball because they already had a star point guard. So, in a surprising move that no one saw coming, the Celtics traded down with the Philadelphia 76ers to send them the number 1 overall pick in exchange for the 3rd pick and future draft picks. And it worked out incredibly well for Boston and Tatum.
It's honestly the full game. I marvel at his ability to make shots in the 4th as hard as that guy plays.
Here's Tatum, and he throws it down.
This was the beginning of Jayson Tatum's rise to the championship trophy. The young man from Missouri basically landed in the best possible destination because the Boston Celtics were already playoff contenders by that time. They only got better after acquiring Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward during the offseason. Plus, they had Jaylen Brown, another athletic and talented wing, steadily developing. The coaching was also insanely good because Brad Stevens is a modern-day basketball genius. In other words, Tatum had it easy because he landed on a winning organization that already had the right pieces. So, during his rookie year, he didn't have to do much, all while relying on Irving and the other veterans. In fact, because his numbers weren't impressive, there were a lot of people thinking that he was probably a mistake at the 3rd overall pick. Still, he was better than both Fultz and Ball. While Fultz was struggling with injuries, Ball was struggling to hit shots. Of course, the Laker fans were the ones trolling Tatum because they thought that their late 1st-round pick, Kyle Kuzma, was better than Tatum. There were even ongoing debates between fans who believed that Kuzma was actually better than Tatum in almost every way. Yes, you could laugh at that.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
While he finished 3rd in the Rookie of the Year voting behind Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell, Tatum showcased his talents during the playoffs when both Irving and Hayward were injured. He led the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals while averaging 18.5 points as a rookie and even dunking on LeBron James. Since then, the sky was the limit for Tatum, who only continued adding more elements to his game while making it to the playoffs every single season. A few seasons later, the Celtics went all in on Tatum. Irving left as a free agent to go to the Brooklyn Nets. Meanwhile, Hayward struggled to return to star form after his serious injuries. With that, Boston needed to focus its franchise on their star from Missouri and their secondary superstar, Jaylen Brown. But while Tatum always made the playoffs with the Celtics, things weren't always easy. The Celtics were good, but they always ran into teams that had their number. In most cases, it was the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler kicking them out of the playoffs and preventing them from making a deep run into the finals. And it actually came to a point where people were wondering if Tatum was the right player to build a championship roster around. Some people even thought the Celtics should break up the J tandem of Tatum and Brown because they weren't winning. These doubts grew louder when the Golden State Warriors beat them in the 2022 Finals and when the Miami Heat outlasted them in the 2023 East Finals. But instead of letting the haters get to him, Tatum only continued to work hard while adding new things to his game. He packed on some lean muscle to help him get through physical playoff defenses. He worked on his passing skills so that he could get his teammates involved whenever defenders were focused on him.
5 to shoot. Tatum, 3-pointer. Bang!
And more importantly, he worked on his defense so that he could also guard opposing star players. Meanwhile, the Celtics did not blow up their roster. Instead, they only made an already strong roster into an unfair one by adding Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis during the offseason of 2023. Those two additions eventually opened up Tatum's game and allowed the Celtics to run through the entire league. So, during the 2024 playoffs, all eyes were on Tatum when the Celtics were expected to have another deep run in the postseason. First, they finally defeated the Miami Heat, the very same team that tormented them for years. Even though they did it while Butler was out with an injury, it still counted. Then, in the second round, they went through an injury-struck Cleveland Cavaliers team that couldn't contend with their star power. And in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Celtics defeated a defenseless Indiana Pacers. Tatum was now back in the finals for the second time in his career. But even though this was his one true chance for redemption, there were still fans trolling him because his teammate, Jaylen Brown, won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP award over him. In other words, they were saying that Brown carried Tatum the entire playoffs, even though Taco J clearly had better numbers. But that didn't matter because Tatum dominated the finals in his own way, attacking Luka Doncic's defense while dictating the tempo.
Now guarding Tatum. Tatum gets in the lane, layup off the glass.
Unlike before, when he was too weak and scrawny to barrel through defenses and when he couldn't make plays for teammates whenever he wasn't scoring well, Tatum was basically cutting through the Dallas Mavericks defense to score or make plays. He ended up averaging 22.2 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 7.2 assists during the 2024 Finals. Of course, the Finals MVP went to Jaylen Brown for his timely scoring and defense on Doncic. But Tatum was the barometer of that entire series as he hoisted his first championship trophy. So, from a scrawny kid who was always third behind other players in high school, college, and the NBA, Tatum transformed himself into a true elite in the league simply by turning his weaknesses into strengths. He learned from all the previous losses he endured and ensured to make up for whatever lapses he had in the past to turn into one of the best players the league has to offer. If you look at him now and compare him to his rookie year, you wouldn't recognize him at all. That's not only because he's now bigger and stronger, but also because he carries himself with the confidence and aura of a true top 5 player in the league. And his playing style is also so much different compared to what it used to be, all because he worked hard on improving his game instead of sticking to what he was good at.